night everything changed in Aria's life began with the clinking of glasses and the fake laughter of people who had always underestimated her. The long dining table in her father's mansion glittered with silverware, the chandeliers throwing their light on faces she had known since childhood, faces that smirked at her whenever she spoke. Aria sat quietly at the far end, twisting her napkin between her fingers, trying not to flinch at every sideways glance. Her father, Richard, a man who built his reputation on being a self-made businessman, sat at the head of the table like a king on his throne. His booming voice carried over the chatter, and every word he spoke seemed to demand approval. "Let's toast to real success," Richard declared, lifting his glass. "To hard work, discipline, and earning respect the proper way, by building things that matter." Everyone echoed him, raising their glasses. But Aria noticed the way his eyes darted to her, sharp and accusing, like the toast had a hidden barb meant to pierce her directly. Her younger brother, Mason, smirked openly. "Some of us still believe in real jobs, not internet hobbies." The table erupted in polite laughter. Her chest tightened. She had heard it all before. Fake job, online scam, playing with computers. For 3 years, she had endured the same mockery while quietly working 16-hour days, building her digital consultancy from scratch. Tonight, though, something about their laughter felt sharper, more cruel than usual. Her father leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "Aria, tell us again what it is you do all day. Clicking buttons? Playing on social media? It amazes me how you waste your potential." "I run a digital consultancy, Dad," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "We provide AI-driven solutions for businesses." "It's AI-driven solutions," Mason interrupted, rolling his eyes. "Hear that, everyone? My sister is out here selling fake intelligence to strangers. No wonder she still lives like a broke student." The relatives laughed again. Her cheeks burned hot. Richard slammed his glass down, cutting her off. "Enough. I've had it with this nonsense. You're nearly 30 and still clinging to some imaginary job. You think sitting in front of a laptop makes you a businesswoman? You're embarrassing me. Embarrassing this family." Aria's throat closed. She wanted to scream, to reveal everything she had achieved. But the venom in his voice froze her. "Dad, don't dad me," he roared. "You're a failure. A parasite. Do you hear me? Useless. Everyone here knows it." Her mother, always silent, lowered her gaze. None of them defended her. Not one. And then came the words that would sever her ties forever. "Leave. Tonight. I don't want you under my roof another day. If you won't get a real job, then don't expect to live off my generosity." The room went still. Even Mason stopped smirking, startled at the finality of his father's decree. Aria's heart pounded. For years she had swallowed her pride, telling herself she needed to endure it, that one day they'd see her worth. But now, as her father's voice echoed through the mansion, she realized the truth. They would never accept her. Tears blurred her vision, but she refused to let them fall. Slowly she rose from her seat. "Fine," she whispered. "I'll leave. But don't forget this moment, because one day, you will." Laughter followed her as she walked out, Mason muttering under his breath, her aunts exchanging pitying glances, her father shaking his head as if she were the punchline of a bad joke. What none of them knew was that Aria wasn't walking away empty-handed. She was walking away with an empire. That night, in the cramped apartment she had been secretly renting, Aria opened her laptop and stared at the emails flooding her inbox. The investor deal she had been negotiating for months had finally closed. Contracts signed, money transferred, valuation finalized. Her company, dismissed by her family as a fake internet job, had just been valued at $38 million. She leaned back in her chair, her body trembling with adrenaline. The ink on her father's words, failure, useless parasite, was still wet in her memory, but the truth now glowed on her screen. She was richer, more powerful, and more successful than anyone in that mansion would ever be. But she didn't celebrate. Not yet. Instead, a cold clarity settled in her chest. They had mocked her for years, cut her down at every step, and tonight they had thrown her out like garbage. They thought she was powerless, and that was going to be her weapon. By dawn, she had already moved into her new home, a secluded glass cabin overlooking the pristine waters of Lake Tahoe. The cabin had been quietly purchased months earlier through a holding company, a secret sanctuary she had been saving for the right moment. That moment had arrived. As she stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, the mountains reflected in the lake, she felt the first taste of freedom she had craved all her life. But she also felt something darker, an ember of vengeance that refused to die. Her phone buzzed. A message from her financial advisor appeared. "Congratulations, Aria. You're officially one of the youngest self-made multimillionaires in the country. Investors are eager for your next move." She stared at the message for a long time before typing her reply. "My next move? I'm going to teach my family what real success looks like." Meanwhile, back at the mansion, her father was already rewriting the story of her departure. "She finally left," he told relatives. "Good riddance. Maybe now she'll wake up and find real work." Mason chimed in with a laugh. "She's probably begging for couch space at a friend's place. She'll come crawling back in a week." But as the days passed, whispers began to spread. Someone had spotted Aria driving a sleek black car near the city center. Another swore they saw her name on a new tech article online. Her father dismissed it all as gossip, too arrogant to imagine his daughter could have succeeded without his guidance. What he didn't realize was that his empire, the very business he prided himself on, was already crumbling under debts. And soon, those debts would belong to Aria. 1 week after being cast out, Aria attended her first major investor dinner in San Francisco. She wore a tailored suit, her hair tied back, her posture exuding confidence. As she entered the glittering ballroom, dozens of eyes turned toward her. The same name her father had laughed, and was now being whispered with awe. "She's the one behind the AI firm. Everyone's talking about. She's worth millions already. They say she's negotiating contracts with Fortune 500 companies." Every compliment was a dagger, aimed at her father's arrogance. And yet, as the evening wore on, she couldn't shake a haunting thought. Would they ever know? Would they ever realize that the daughter they spat on now stood higher than them all? She didn't want simple recognition. She wanted them to choke on the truth. The first step of her plan came sooner than expected. Her financial advisor informed her that a struggling logistics company, one heavily tied to her father's business, was up for silent acquisition. "Buy it," she said without hesitation. "But, Aria," the advisor replied cautiously, "that company is practically a lifeline for your father's imports. If you acquire it, you'll—" "Exactly," she cut in. "Make it happen. And don't put my name anywhere near the paperwork." As she hung up, her reflection in the glass window stared back at her. Not the broken daughter who had been cast out, but a woman reborn in fire. The irony was delicious. While her family believed she was drowning, Aria was quietly building the dam that would hold their futures hostage. And she would make sure the day they discovered the truth was the day they regretted every laugh, every insult, every time they called her useless. The day was coming when Richard, Mason, and the entire family would realize that the one they cast aside had been the storm all along. The silence in Aria's Lake Tahoe cabin was broken only by the crackling of the fireplace and the faint buzz of her laptop. Outside, snow was falling against the glass walls, but inside, her world was on fire. Her financial advisor's voice echoed in her ear through the call. "It's official. We've acquired the logistics company, completely under your holding firm's name. Your father won't know who controls it." Aria smiled faintly. "Perfect. Keep the paperwork buried. When the contracts shift, I want the delays to look natural. Just enough pressure to make him sweat. You understand this could cause his company serious trouble, right? Shipments stuck, profits lost." "That's the point," Aria replied coldly. "He took pride in humiliating me in front of everyone. Let's see how he handles humiliation in front of his investors." She hung up and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, she felt in control. But beneath the satisfaction, a voice whispered, "This is just the beginning." Richard survived so many close calls. Why do you think banks lent him money when he should have gone bankrupt years ago? Because I was there, protecting him, feeding him, using him. Aria's stomach turned cold. Using him? The woman's voice dropped. Your father was my pawn, and when he failed, I knew another piece would rise. That piece is you. Aria's hands clenched on the table. What do you want? The woman's eyes glittered. Everything. You're smarter than he ever was, Aria. Ruthless. Precise. But power like yours doesn't stay independent. It belongs to someone bigger. You can fight me, or you can join me. Aria forced herself to breathe evenly. And if I refuse? The woman's smile turned sharp. Then I'll break you the way I broke him. Piece by piece, until the world laughs at your ruins. Aria left the rooftop shaken. She had spent years thinking her father's downfall would be the end of her war. But now she understood. Her family had only been a pawn in someone else's game. And she was next on the board. In the following weeks, attacks on her company intensified. Anonymous smear campaigns painted her as a fraud. Anonymous accounts accused her of rigging contracts. Stock prices wavered. Investors grew nervous. But what cut deepest was the betrayal inside her own circle. Her cybersecurity chief, the one she trusted to guard her digital walls, suddenly resigned. Days later, confidential files leaked online. Competitors swooped in, claiming her algorithms were stolen property. Aria knew immediately who was behind it, the woman on the rooftop. Meanwhile, Mason resurfaced, his reputation ruined but his arrogance intact. One night he appeared at her cabin doorstep, his face gaunt from stress, but his voice dripping venom. Congratulations, sister. You finally got what you wanted. Dad's destroyed. I'm ruined. And you're sitting pretty with your millions. But don't think it'll last. Aria's pulse quickened. You're working with her, aren't you? Mason smirked. She saw what you were too blind to see. She's stronger than you'll ever be. And she promised me something you never would. Revenge. Her chest tightened. She's using you, just like she used Dad. Mason stepped closer, his eyes wild. I don't care. At least with her I matter. With you, I'm nothing. Aria's throat burned, but she didn't flinch. Then you've signed your own death sentence. He laughed bitterly. We'll see. By summer, the war had escalated into open conflict. Aria's company was bleeding under relentless sabotage, while the Shadow Woman, who finally revealed her name as Cassandra Vale, tightened her grip. Cassandra wasn't just a rival. She was a ghost from the corporate underworld, a strategist who had built and destroyed empires from the shadows for decades. And now, she wanted Aria's empire as her crown jewel. The breaking point came at a global tech conference in New York. Aria had been scheduled to speak on AI innovation, a moment that would cement her reputation on the world stage. But hours before her presentation, Cassandra struck. News broke that Aria's company was under federal investigation. Anonymous sources claimed she had manipulated stock prices during her takeover of Richard's firm. Screens everywhere flashed with her name, not as a visionary, but as a fraud. As she stood backstage, the whispers around her cut deep. Investors pulled out, colleagues avoided her. The humiliation she had once promised her father now loomed over her. For a moment, she felt the same sting she had felt at that dinner table months ago. The same laughter, the same disbelief. But this time, something inside her hardened. She walked onto the stage anyway. The audience buzzed, half scandal, half curiosity. She stood tall, her voice steady. You've all seen the headlines, she began. You've heard the whispers. They say I'm a fraud, that I built my empire on lies. But let me tell you a truth. Every empire is built on something the world doesn't understand yet. My father was mocked as a fool when he started importing goods from overseas. They laughed. They doubted. But he changed an industry. I was mocked as a failure for building an online consultancy. They laughed. They doubted. And now they call me a fraud. But let me promise you, history doesn't repeat itself with the same ending. This time, the doubters will be the ones erased. Silence fell. then applause. Hesitant at first, then growing. For that brief moment, Aria stood untouchable again. But as she left the stage, Cassandra was waiting in the shadows, her smile like a knife. "Well played, Aria," she said softly. "But speeches don't win wars. Power does, and you're running out of time." Aria walked away, her heart pounding. Cassandra had revealed her hand. This wasn't just business. This was personal. And if Aria wanted to survive, she had to stop reacting and start striking first. The next chapter of her war wouldn't just be about revenge. It would be about survival. The storm had been gathering for months, and by autumn, it finally broke. Aria's empire was no longer secure. Cassandra Vale's shadowy strikes had cut deep, and Mason's bitter betrayal had driven knives where blood still ran warm. But Aria wasn't broken, not yet. She knew the fire that had fueled her rise was still alive, buried under the weight of doubt, waiting to be unleashed one final time. And this time, she wasn't fighting for revenge. She was fighting for survival, for freedom, and for the right to exist without her life dictated by the voices that once called her a failure. One sleepless night in her Lake Tahoe cabin, Aria spread files across the table. Documents Cassandra had leaked, contracts sabotaged, names of board members who had turned against her. The fire crackled low in the hearth, but her mind burned hotter than the flames. Her advisor had begged her to step back. "Sell what you can, Aria. Take the money and run. You've already won more than anyone thought possible." But she shook her head. "Running means she wins, and I've run too many times in my life, away from my father, away from Mason, away from the voices that laughed. Not this time. If she wants everything, she's going to have to take it from me face to face." The chance came sooner than she expected. An invitation arrived at her office the next morning, sealed with no sender. "If you want the war to end, meet me in New York. Tomorrow, midnight, no lawyers, no press, just you and me. CV." It was a trap. Every instinct told her that. But traps only work when the prey walks in blind. Aria wasn't blind anymore. She booked her flight. The abandoned skyscraper in Lower Manhattan was nearly pitch black when she arrived. The city lights flickered below, but inside, the silence was oppressive. Cassandra stood by the window, her figure framed by neon glow, sharp and commanding. And beside her, as Aria expected, was Mason. Her brother's face was thinner now, eyes feverish, jaw set with defiance. "You came," Cassandra purred, turning. "Good. I was worried you'd send your army of lawyers instead." Aria's voice was steady, though her pulse thundered. "You wanted me alone. Here I am. Now tell me, what is it you really want?" Cassandra's smile was slow, deliberate. "I already told you. Everything. But more than that, I want you to admit something your father never could. That no matter how clever, how resourceful, how ruthless you think you are, you were never in control. You were always dancing on strings I pulled." Aria's jaw clenched. "And Mason? He's your puppet too?" Mason stepped forward, bitterness radiating from him. "Don't twist this, Aria. I chose her. She saw value in me when you only saw weakness. You wanted me erased. She wants me powerful." Her heart squeezed painfully. "Powerful? Mason, she's feeding you the same lie she fed Dad, and when she's done, she'll throw you away too." His lips curled into a smirk, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. "At least I'll matter first," Cassandra cut in smoothly. "Enough of this sentiment. Aria, let's talk. You've proven yourself formidable. You've turned humiliation into empire. But the truth is, you're outmatched. I have influence in every corridor you haven't even stepped into yet. You can burn yourself out fighting me, or you can kneel, and I'll let you keep your crown." Aria's silence stretched. She looked at Mason, at Cassandra, at the reflection of her own figure in the darkened glass. For years, she had clawed her way out of shadows like these, only to find herself back at the edge of another abyss. And then, for the first time in years, she laughed. It wasn't mocking or cruel. It was raw, cutting, and terrifying in its honesty. "You think I came here to kneel?" she said. "You think after everything, after my father's scorn, after being told I was worthless, after fighting tooth and nail to prove I wasn't, I'd bow to you? No, I came here to end this. And when I walk out of this building, Cassandra, I'll be free of you, of him, of all of it." Cassandra's smile faltered, just slightly. Mason's brow furrowed. "You're bluffing." But Aria wasn't, because in her bag was the ace she had been hiding for weeks. While Cassandra had been tightening her noose, Aria had been digging, not just into Cassandra's empire, but into the cracks she thought no one could see. Her team had uncovered offshore accounts tied directly to Cassandra, illegal manipulations that propped up her empire. They found forged contracts, bribes, and blackmail trails that traced back decades. Cassandra Vale had not built her throne cleanly, and now Aria had the proof. Slowly, deliberately, Aria set a tablet on the table between them. The screen lit up with files, numbers, photos. Cassandra's expression stiffened. Aria's voice was like steel. "While you were busy tearing at my walls, I was inside yours. Every move you made left a shadow. And shadows, Cassandra, always leave a trail. This file? It's already with federal investigators. By tomorrow morning, your name won't be whispered in boardrooms. It'll be printed across every headline as the woman who built empires on fraud." Cassandra's mask cracked for the first time. Mason's head whipped between them, confusion breaking through his anger. "What is this? Cassandra, tell me she's lying." Cassandra's silence said everything. Mason's breath hitched. His face went pale. You used me." Aria's chest ached, but she held firm. "I told you, Mason. You were never her partner. You were her pawn, just like Dad." He stumbled back, betrayal scrawled across his face. For the first time, he looked less like her rival and more like the brother she had once known, the one who only wanted to be seen. Cassandra's voice snapped, sharp and venomous. "You think this ends me? Empires like mine don't collapse with a file. I've survived worse. And you, Aria, you've just signed your own death warrant." Aria stepped closer, her voice low but unyielding. "No, Cassandra, I've signed my freedom, because this was never about building the biggest empire. It was about breaking the chains of people like you, people who live to remind others of their worthlessness. My father did it. You did it. And for years I believed you. But not anymore." The confrontation ended not with fists or gunfire, but with silence. Cassandra's empire did collapse, slowly at first, then all at once, as investigations swept through her network like wildfire. Her name became toxic, her allies abandoned. Her and her throne crumbled beneath the weight of her secrets. Mason disappeared for weeks after that night. When he finally resurfaced, he didn't come back with arrogance or venom. He came quietly, standing outside Aria's office, his hands empty, his expression hollow. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "But you were right. I let my need to be seen blind me. I let her use me. And I don't know who I am without the hate." Aria studied him, pain flickering in her chest. "Then start with this. Stop letting your worth be defined by who tears you down. Stop chasing approval. Learn who you are when you're not someone else's pawn." For once, Mason didn't argue. He just nodded. Months later, Aria stood once again on a stage, not to defend herself this time, but to deliver the keynote speech at one of the world's largest innovation summits. The auditorium was packed, cameras flashing, the air electric with anticipation. She no longer felt the sting of mockery or the ache of doubt. Instead, she felt something new. Clarity. Her voice rang out, strong and certain. People will tell you you're nothing, that you're useless, that without their approval, you will never matter. I lived with those voices for years. I was told I was a failure, a fraud, a fool. And for a long time, I believed them. But here's what I've learned. No one gets to define your worth except you. Not your family, not your rivals, not the ones who laugh at your dreams because they're too small to imagine them. Every empire, every triumph, every breakthrough starts the same way, with someone the world underestimates. And the only real revenge isn't proving them wrong, it's proving yourself right. I'm standing here not because I silenced the voices that doubted me, but because I outgrew them. And so can you. The applause that followed shook the hall. And for the first time in her life, Aria didn't feel like she was fighting to be seen. She simply was. Aria's journey ended not with revenge alone, but with redemption. She destroyed Cassandra, yes. She silenced her father's shadow, yes. But more importantly, she reclaimed her voice, her identity, and her right to define her own worth. That was the power she had been chasing all along.